Hostile worlds, bad systems, cosmic mistakes, ordinary people caught in forces too large to fight. These aren't stories about heroes, they're stories about endurance and what breaks when technology outpaces wisdom. Strap in, check your air. This is Vicious Planets.
Vicious Planets, Season 0, Episode 3, He Glorped Himself, by Morgan Olson. Cultural Attaché Dolen had read Module 7 4 times. He had read it the first time when his posting was confirmed, in the same sitting where he read his reassignment letter twice to make sure it said what it said. Species 47 Cultural Liaison, Frontier Station Kellar-9. 18-month rotation, standard hazard differential. He had read the module the second time on the transport out, highlighting sections with the focused attention of a man who understood that his career was either beginning or ending and was not yet sure which. The third reading was the night before first contact. The fourth was the morning of. He had the key violations memorized: extended silence, translator interference, and the third one, which the module described only as Glorping, with a severity rating of moderate and a follow-up notation that read, "See Appendix C." Appendix C said, "Cultural context varies. Personnel are advised to avoid conditions that may give rise to this behavior." There was no Appendix D. Dolen had written a note in the margin. What is Glorping? He had not found an answer before his first meeting with the Species 47 coordination team. The two aliens assigned to the joint working group were named, per their Federation transliterations, Velanak and Sun-Torath. They were tall, bilaterally symmetrical in most of the ways that mattered, and covered in a fine layer of what the xenobiology briefing described as exterior sensory plating, a structural skin that shifted subtly in response to environmental input. When the station's ventilation ran cold, it tightened. When the lights shifted, it changed register. Dolen had been advised not to comment on this. The briefing also noted, in a single line under ocular physiology, that the corona of each eye, a luminous outer ring that Dolen found quietly remarkable, would occasionally shift in color and intensity in response to temperature fluctuations. A thermoregulatory response, the briefing said. Not significant, not worth remarking on. He filed this alongside everything else. They had been assigned a shared workspace on level 4, a room large enough to be professional and small enough to prevent the kind of comfortable distance that let parties pretend they weren't in the same room. There was a table. There were chairs configured for 2 body types. There was a small service console with approved beverages and 1 unapproved item. A folded cloth napkin, which Velanak had placed in the center of the table at the first meeting and repositioned at every subsequent one. Dolen had not asked about the napkin. The first 3 days were very quiet. Not in the extended silence sense. Everyone understood the rule about extended silence. The Federation translator system filled every gap. Processing response, considering input, 1 moment please. And neither party allowed more than 4 seconds to lapse without some kind of verbal activity. They were excellent at this. They were so excellent at this that by the end of day 3, Dolen had produced 47 minutes of recorded professional dialogue that communicated, in the most technically complete way possible, absolutely nothing. The coordination framework is well structured, Velanak said on day 2. We appreciate the thoroughness, Sun-Torath added. The previous liaison's documentation was comprehensive, said Dolen. Yes, said Velanak, comprehensive. There was a pause of 2.8 seconds. Processing acknowledgement, said the translator. They moved on. The thing about cultural integration training, Dolen had come to understand, was that it was built entirely around the negative space. The list of things you must not do, must not say, must not allow to happen. Module 7 covered 31 specific violations. It covered the cultural weight of body orientation, the significance of consumable placement, the 17 distinct meanings of prolonged plate tightening, and how to distinguish the benign ones from the ones that had historically preceded formal complaints. It told him what extended silence communicated. It told him the translator system existed to prevent most violations before they landed. What it did not tell him was what Species 47 was actually like. In the absence of violations, they were correct. They arrived precisely on time. They produced documentation that was exactly as thorough as documentation needed to be. They phrased observations in the careful passive register that the module identified as standard professional mode and never deviated from it unless specifically prompted. Vel-Anak occasionally made small adjustments to the napkin. Soon-Torath occasionally rearranged the beverage placement and then put it back. Dolen recognized this behavior because he was doing the same thing. On day 6, he arrived 4 minutes early and spent 2 of them moving his chair 3 centimeters to the left and then back to where it was. On day 19, the translator misread a documentation term, a minor ambiguity in a supply chain reference, the kind of thing that could spiral into an extended silence situation if handled incorrectly. Dolen caught it before it landed, rephrased the observation cleanly, and continued. It took perhaps 4 seconds. He moved on without remarking on it. He did not notice that Soon-Torath's corona had shifted. It went briefly, unmistakably gold, not the pale shift the briefing attributed to temperature, before settling back. She noted this with the detached attention of a scientist observing her own unexpected results. She said nothing. She repositioned her beverage container 3 millimeters to the left. What the Federation module did not know, because no human liaison had stayed long enough to be told, was that the corona was not a thermoregulatory response. It had nothing to do with temperature. The xenobiology team had measured it during cold room assessments and drawn the wrong conclusion, and the wrong conclusion had been filed and repeated until it became official. And now, it sat in the briefing documents of every human diplomat who had ever sat across from Species 47 and completely missed what they were being shown. Soon-Torath was aware of this error. She had never corrected it. Day 31 arrived like all the others. They were reviewing a resource allocation schedule when Soon-Torath said, very carefully, without looking up, "Some species describe their surroundings." A pause. "Not us," said Vel-Anak. They both nodded, approximately 1.5 standard nods with slightly more energy than the situation warranted. Dolen had cataloged the quality of their nods over 31 days. This one he filed under anomalous, but non-violating. He said, "The documentation looks complete." They agreed that it did. That evening, Vel-Anak and Soon-Torath remained in the workspace after Dolen departed. Neither of them spoke for almost a full minute, which among their species was not silence. It was a very specific kind of attention. Vel-Anak repositioned the napkin. Soon-Torath moved the beverage container 3 millimeters to the right and did not move it back. Day 35 arrived on a Tuesday by the station's calendar. Dolen arrived 4 minutes early, moved his chair 3 centimeters to the left, moved it back, and sat down. He reviewed his agenda notes. He made a small correction to a documentation reference. He waited. Vel-Anak and Soon-Torath arrived precisely on time. They sat. They arranged their materials. Soon-Torath placed her documentation on the left side of the table, which Dolen noted was 1 centimeter further from the center than her usual placement. He filed this. He did not know it was the Species 47 equivalent of raising a glass. The meeting proceeded normally. 47 minutes of it. At the 48th minute, Soon-Torath's corona went gold again. Not briefly this time. It held for several seconds before she regulated it back. She moved her beverage container to the right and did not move it back. Dolen noticed the beverage container. He did not notice the corona. He thought, the ventilation may be running warm today. He made a note to mention it to station maintenance. He did not mention it in the meeting because it seemed like the kind of observation that didn't belong in a coordination session, and he was not yet sure if it would constitute a violation. And he had not yet found a section in Module 7 that covered temperature-related small talk, so he let it go. He let a great many things go. This was, though he did not know it, the point. What he also did not know was that no human liaison, In 6 years of attempts, across 47 individuals selected for cultural aptitude, diplomatic training, and psychological stability, had ever sat in that room on day 35. The Federation had written Module 7 entirely from the experience of people who had failed before reaching it. Every violation listed, every warning issued, every translator patch implemented had been designed around the first 34 days, because the first 34 days were all anyone had ever seen. Day 35 was the threshold. In the ancient protocol of Sun-Torath's people, 35 days of perfect self-governance meant that trust had been established, not given, not assumed, but earned through demonstration. After the threshold, a different kind of relationship was possible. After the threshold, a door existed where no door had been before, and on the other side of the door, the second half. The weeks of the second half felt different to Dolen in ways he could not measure. The meetings followed the same structure. The documentation proceeded correctly. The translator filled its gaps. And yet something had shifted in the atmosphere of the room, some quality of attention that he could not identify and did not have professional language for. He reviewed Module 7 one more time, looking for the section on atmospheric change. There was no section on atmospheric change. He began to think the module had gaps. On day 38, Velanak adjusted the napkin 4 times in 11 minutes. Dolen had a theory about the napkin by this point, that it was a focusing object, something tactile to occupy the part of attention not engaged with the current task, a recognizable behavior for which he had no professional language. He also had a theory about the beverage repositioning, the precise chair angles before each meeting, the particular silence in the 30 seconds after the agenda completed, but before anyone moved to leave. They were all, he suspected, doing the exact same thing. He had begun to find this funny. He was not sure if that was appropriate. Module 7 did not have a section on finding things funny. Sun-Torath was losing control of her corona, and she was aware of this, and it was professionally inconvenient. She had sat across from a great many humans, a great many of her own species. None of them had made it here. And this one, this unremarkable, careful, documentation-focused human with his highlighted module and his theories about the napkin, had simply kept going, day after day, correct and quiet and completely unaware that he was doing something her culture considered almost mythological. She had not expected this. Her nervous system, it turned out, had opinions about it that did not require her permission. She regulated the corona each time it shifted. She was good at this. But on day 41, she made the tactical error of thinking carefully about the day 19 translator incident. The clean, unhesitating way he had caught it without making anything of it. And the corona had gone gold for almost 4 full seconds before she brought it back. Velanak had noticed. He said nothing. He repositioned the napkin with the very specific energy that in their culture communicated, "I see exactly what is happening, and you are welcome." She moved her beverage container 3 millimeters to the right. Neither of them mentioned it. The incident occurred on day 44, in the last 12 minutes of a standard coordination meeting. The agenda had been completed. The documentation was filed. There was approximately 11 minutes remaining in the scheduled block, which all parties typically filled with a structured exchange of forward-looking professional observations before departing at the appropriate time. Dolen privately called this the quiet stretch, the point at which all 3 of them had done everything required and were now in the process of not leaving yet. Sun-Torath was looking at the ventilation unit on the ceiling. Velanak had repositioned the napkin twice in the last 4 minutes. Dolen was watching the light coming through the porthole shift across the table surface. The station was in the mid-rotation shadow pass. The light was doing something very specific, contracting and elongating as the station's orientation changed, creating a slow diagonal movement across the workspace that was objectively interesting to watch. He knew he should say something that was not about the light. He thought about the upcoming review cycle. He thought about the next month's coordination calendar. He thought about a very neutral observation he could make about the documentation. Then Velanak said quietly without particular inflection, "External phenomena can be noticeable." A pause. Not that we would comment on them, said Soon Torath. No, said Velanak. Inappropriate. They both looked at the napkin. Dolen understood, with a clarity that sometimes arrives at the end of a long stretch of careful behavior, that they had just given him something. Not permission exactly. More like a door left slightly open. The way you might leave a door open and then go stand very deliberately on the other side of it and look at the ceiling. He looked at the light on the table. He thought about Module 7 for approximately 2 seconds. Then he said, "Conditions outside appear variable today." What happened next happened quickly. Soon Torath made a sound that the translator rendered as a short burst of static before falling silent. A small quantity of the approved beverage exited her mouth and crossed the table. This was not, Dolen would note in the incident report, a large quantity. It was approximately 4 centiliters, but it traveled with purpose. Velanak doubled forward at an angle the xenobiology briefing had never once mentioned as a possibility. His exterior plating went through 3 rapid cycle shifts. He was pointing. She glorped herself, Velanak said. The translator offered nothing. This was apparently a context outside its operational scope, and it had chosen the dignity of silence. He just sat there, said Soon Torath, straightening only partially, and glorped himself. In front of us. Without prompting. Twice, said Velanak. Dolen looked at the light on the table, which had continued moving with no awareness of the situation. He was still holding his documentation. He had not moved. I was under the impression, he began, that external observations were... No, said Soon Torath. Don't. It becomes Glorpie, said Velanak. They were not using the translator anymore. Whatever this register was, the translator had decided it was beyond its brief and excused itself, which Dolen recognized as a small institutional abandonment. The sounds they were making, overlapping, recursive, increasingly helpless, landed somewhere in his chest before his brain had finished processing them. He understood, without Module 7's assistance, what he was listening to. You chose it, said Soon Torath, recovering slightly. Nobody asked, said Velanak. We opened a door, said Soon Torath. She made a gesture with her upper appendage that communicated, Dolen felt rather than translated, and you walked through it in the most deliberate, careful, thoroughly considered way possible, which is somehow the funniest version of this that has ever happened. That's a choice, said Velanak. That is deeply a choice, Soon Torath agreed. Her corona was gold. She was not regulating it. Dolen set down his documentation. Is this, he said carefully, a violation? There was a silence that was not any kind of silence the module had prepared him for. Then Soon Torath reached across the table and with great deliberateness moved the beverage container 3 centimeters to the right. We're going to have to log it, said Velanak. Yes, said Soon Torath. They looked at Dolen with an expression he did not have professional language for, but which communicated something warm and direct and entirely outside the 31 violations and their corresponding mitigations. It communicated something about 38 days of a folded napkin repositioned 1 centimeter at a time, about chairs adjusted and adjusted back, about 11 minutes of light on a table while 3 people looked at the ceiling. He filled out the incident report that afternoon. Nature of violation, glorping, self-initiated, unprompted, single occurrence, circumstances, cultural observation in a professional context, voluntary, outcome, ongoing. Then he sat with that for a moment and changed it to positive. Then he changed it back to ongoing. He filed it as written. He was in his quarters reviewing the incident report for the 4th time when his communication terminal chimed. The identifier read, Soon Torath, J, Species 47 Coordination Office. He accepted the call. Cultural Attaché Dolen, she said. Correct. Professional. Entirely standard mode. Yes, he said. That's me. A pause that was not extended silence. A different category of pause entirely. Are there other Federation personnel present in your quarters? He looked around his quarters, which contained himself, one incident report, and a cold cup of station coffee. No. Good. Another pause. I wanted to ask about something you said in the coordination meeting on day 23. A reference to longitudinal variance in the supply chain projections. You used a particular phrasing. Dolen thought back to day 23. He remembered the meeting. He was not certain he remembered the specific phrasing. I can pull the transcript if... I remember it, she said. He waited. It was precise, she said. He said, thank you. She found this funny. He could hear it without being able to identify it, a quality in the silence that followed that was lighter than professional silence. You're thanking me for telling you your documentation was accurate. It seemed like the appropriate response. She found that funnier. It is, she said. It's also very you. He did not know what to do with very you, so he asked a clarifying question about the day 23 supply chain reference. She found that funniest of all. They talked for a while. She was, it turned out, nothing like standard professional mode. She had opinions about the station's ventilation system that were specific and well-evidenced. She had thoughts about Federation documentation conventions that were sharp enough that Dolen found himself writing 2 of them down. She asked him questions about human behavior that were carefully phrased and oddly precise, the kind of questions that suggested a long, private curiosity being carefully aired for the first time. At some point, he noticed that the light from the porthole had moved all the way across the room. The call has been running for 1 hour and 17 minutes, he said. I'm aware, she said. He asked if there was a documentation matter she had needed to address. The pause this time was longer. A held breath. A door standing open in the dark. There is something I want to tell you, she said. But I need to know that it won't appear in formal paperwork. Not yet. Can you do that? It was not quite a question. Dolen considered this for exactly the amount of time it took him to understand that she was asking him to extend the same quality of discretion that had characterized 44 days of coordination meetings, and that she was asking because she trusted him to have it. Yes, he said. She was quiet for a moment. Then, on my world, there is an ancient protocol, a threshold, to be considered for the highest office, to be trusted with governance of the planet itself. A candidate must demonstrate 35 days of perfect self-governance in formal assessment, not compliance, not performance, genuine governance of the self, observed and confirmed. 35 days of that, and you are considered trustworthy enough to hold the door open for others. Dolen said nothing. He was listening with his full attention, and she could tell. In 6 years, she said, we have assessed 47 human liaisons. The longest any of them lasted was 12 days. We have assessed representatives from 9 other species. No one has reached the threshold. The Federation module was written entirely by people who failed before day 35, which is why the module only describes how not to fail. It has never been updated because no one who used it ever learned there was something on the other side. The room was very quiet. You crossed the threshold on day 35, she said. At which point, by our protocol, the assessment is complete. Trust is established. The formal posture can relax. And the tension that has been building. She paused. There is a tradition of what happens to tension when it finally releases. The glorping, said Dolen. Yes, she said. The glorping. Something warm moved through her voice. Among my people, humor works like this. You construct a situation carefully. You inhabit it genuinely. You let the tension build for exactly as long as it is real, because the moment it stops being real, the humor is gone. And when it finally releases, the release is proportional to the honesty of the construction. Dolen thought about the napkin. He thought about the beverage container. He thought about 44 days of light on a table and 3 people looking at the ceiling. We had a king, she said. Long ago. He completed the 35-day threshold. And then he continued. He governed with perfect self-possession through his entire first year in office. Into a second year. 91 days became 100, became 200. His advisors were beside themselves, not with worry, with anticipation. Because every day he continued was another day the tension built, and everyone understood that when it finally released, whatever emerged from that man would be proportional to everything he'd held. "What happened?" said Dolen. 2 years and 3 days after his threshold, she said. He was reviewing the annual harvest projections with his full council. 12 senior advisors, formal setting, the complete ceremonial posture. And someone mentioned that conditions outside appeared variable that morning. Dolen was very still. "And the king," she said, after 2 years and 3 days of perfect self-governance, looked out the window at the sky and glorped himself, in front of the full council, magnificently, historically. Her voice had the quality of someone smiling at something genuinely loved. His reign was the most prosperous in our recorded history, not despite the glorp, because of it. Because for 2 years and 3 days, everyone around him had known that underneath all that extraordinary governance, there was a real person. And when he finally proved it, they would have done anything for him. Dolen looked at his incident report. Nature of violation. Glorping. Single occurrence. Self-initiated. "I've been doing this for 6 years, she said quietly. 47 humans, colleagues of mine who couldn't make 8 days. I had stopped expecting the threshold. I had started to think perhaps it was a different era, a different kind of patience, that the world had moved past the conditions that allowed for it." A pause. "And then you came in with your highlighted module, and you moved your chair 3 centimeters to the left on day 6 and moved it back, and you just kept going." Dolen did not say anything. "You have no idea what you did," she said. It was not an accusation. It was something closer to wonder. "I was doing my job," he said. "Yes," she said. "That's exactly what you were doing." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "There is one more thing. About the formal paperwork." "Yes. The protocol notes that once a door is opened, it can go in both directions." A pause. "I want to make sure you understand what I'm telling you." He understood what she was telling him. The room was very quiet. He said, "I understand." She said, "Good." And then, just before she said anything further, his communication terminal chimed with an incoming priority signal. The identifier read, "Office of the First Ambassador, Species 47 Diplomatic Mission." He looked at the terminal. He looked at the call with Soon-Torath. He said, "One moment." He accepted the priority signal on a secondary channel. A voice, formal, senior, carrying the particular quality of someone accustomed to being answered immediately, said, "Cultural Attaché Dolen. We are attempting to locate Senior Coordinator Soon-Torath. Our records indicate her last known location was Frontier Station Kellar-9. Is she present in your vicinity?" Dolen considered this for approximately 1 second. "No," he said. "I'm afraid I have no idea." He closed the channel. The primary call was quiet for a moment. Then Soon-Torath laughed. Not standard professional mode. Not the recursive, helpless glorp of the meeting room. Something else entirely. A sound that was warm and startled and genuine. The laugh of someone who has just discovered that playing hooky from formality, for the first time in a life built on its careful maintenance, is the most alive they have felt in years. That the door goes both ways. That on the other side of the door, there is a human who will tell the First Ambassador he has no idea, 1 second after being informed exactly where she is, without a single beat of hesitation. Now inside Dolen's room. She started, looking up at Dolen with gold and silver in the corona. "I had no idea," said Dolen, and I was surprised how accurate heat exchange was. She laughed again. He had not planned that. It had simply been the accurate thing to say, given the information available to him. He was aware this was probably the funniest version of that. He was also aware that he did not have a module for what came next. Also, he would need some time acquiring a new uniform because this one was no longer in working order. He found, somewhat to his surprise, that this was fine. "Would you like some more heat exchange?" Torath said. "Oh my," Dolen said. Cultural Attaché Dolen served out his 18-month rotation at Kellar-9. He was the first liaison in 6 years to receive a joint commendation from both the Federation Coordination Office and the Species 47 Working Group, notable enough to appear in 2 separate quarterly reports and generate a brief interdepartmental correspondence about whether the commendation required a new form category. It did. They created one. His final report described the working relationship as productive and professionally engaged, which was accurate, and he was not the kind of person who added more than accuracy to official documentation. He added one supplemental note in the methodology section, under recommendations for future personnel. Module 7 is thorough. Read Appendix C carefully. What you are looking for in Appendix C is the thing it does not tell you. Leave room for it. The assessment is 35 days. What comes after the assessment is not in the module. Show up for it anyway. The note was flagged by 2 reviewers as too vague for a formal report, and by 1 reviewer as the most useful thing written in a species coordination summary in 11 years. The flag and the commendation were filed together in the same folder. Vel Anak and Torath attended his departure briefing. This was not standard. The napkin was on the table. Nobody commented on it. Federation Cultural Integration Module 7 was updated the following cycle. Appendix C now reads, "Cultural context varies. Personnel are advised to avoid conditions that may give rise to this behavior." See also, Appendix D. Appendix D reads, "Some doors are left open. The assessment is 35 days. Show up for day 36. It does not elaborate further. No one who has read it has yet asked why." Vicious Planets is a production of Static Oracle Press. Season 0 continues.
This episode is a work of fiction. Any references to Federation Cultural Integration Protocols, xenobiology briefings, or the 31 violations contained in Module 7 are for storytelling purposes only and should not be used as actual diplomatic guidance. Static Oracle Press accepts no responsibility for any extended silence situations that arise from following this episode's advice, implied or otherwise. Species 47 is fictional. Their customs, biology, ocular physiology, and the specific luminous properties of their corona are invented. The xenobiology team's incorrect conclusion about thermoregulation has been filed and is not being corrected at this time. This is consistent with how these things actually work. Glorping is not a recognized violation under any current Federation charter, primarily because no Federation charter exists, but also because the word is doing something the translator cannot handle, and we respect that boundary. The napkin is not available for comment. The incident report filed by Cultural Attaché Dolen has been classified at his own request as ongoing. Heat exchange, as referenced in this episode, is a well-documented thermodynamic process. Any additional interpretation is the reader's own and falls outside the operational scope of this disclaimer, which has chosen the dignity of silence on the matter. The uniform has been replaced. Appendix D has been updated. Show up for day 36. Copyright 2026 Morgan Olson / Static Oracle Press. All rights reserved.